Hi, I'm Jaclyn.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
Welcome back to Caffeinated Crimes Evening Edition, because Courtney and I usually do not record in the evening, but we are this week, so I don't know, maybe it'll have a different vibe. Courtney has like this beautiful glow on her face right now from the sun setting in her eyeballs, so, you know.
Yeah, I have maybe like 10 more minutes before it fully sets, but things are a little hard to see right now from the right side of my face, which is always what you want to hear right before I'm about to read you a story.
Exactly. So if some of the words are not like the right word, maybe Courtney just can't see the screen. So just bear with us, okay? You know what we mean. It's fine.
I'll just like hunch down if I could get really close.
I'm also trying my new podcast setup that is in my guest room as opposed to my baby's nursery because my baby's going to be here sometime soon. So I was like, well, I guess we better move this on over. So we'll see how the sound quality is today. And yeah, if we have to make more adjustments, then we will. And I was trying to decide if I should be on the side of the room that's like towards the outside of my house or towards the inside of my house. And I'm like, which one is more likely to have more noise? So I went with the outside of my house because I feel like my husband and animals are more likely to make noise than my neighbors. So
It's very true.
yeah.
So while a lot of things are new right now, we're recording in the evening, Jaclyn set up, another thing that's not new is our continuation of this horrible segment of mass shootings. And I really thought, like, we're only recording this maybe 2 days after the last one, and so I was like, we're not going to have anything. There's going to be nothing. 2021 showed me.
Yes.
So this one actually, it did make nationwide news, but it was very local to me. There was a school shooting at Austin East High School here in Knoxville, Tennessee, and one person is dead. I don't think they've released that name yet. I'm assuming it might be a minor, and that's why. There was an officer shot. He was at the hospital, but I think it was just like he had injuries, but he would be fine. They weren't life-threatening or anything like that. So I've heard a lot of rumors, a lot of speculation, but I'm not really going to spread it because I don't want to be spreading false information, but that did happen. And I mentioned, I think just last episode, how 4 Austin East students have died recently. And so now this in addition, like while everyone's at school, there's a shooting, like that is a lot of trauma to deal with in already a lower income area where they might not have the resources other schools do, and they kind of get neglected a lot by the school system.
Yes, definitely.
So that's a lot going on there. So it's just horrible. I don't really have many words for it.
Yeah, it was just super sad. And like Courtney said, just happened yesterday. So we don't really have a whole lot of what we know to be accurate information. So there may be more information forthcoming. Also, that's happened in the last, like Courtney said, literally 2 days since we recorded. 20-year-old Dante Wright was a black man who was stopped by police for a traffic stop and was shot by police officer Kim Potter, who supposedly meant to grab her taser and accidentally fired her gun. So, okay, so let's say that that's not true, which it's probably not. Then obviously you need to be arrested and charged with murder. Let's say that is true. You're a fucking moron and you still need to be arrested and charged with murder because you never should have been in that position in the first place to be able to make that mistake. Like, that is absurd. There is no way. There is no way.
And there is a charge, at least in Tennessee, that I have seen that's like criminally negligent homicide, which obviously is not the same as like first or second degree murder, but it's like something you did like led to someone dying because you were negligent, which forgetting where your gun taser is, you know. I did see that she resigned and the chief of the town police resigned. And if people want to come and be like, well, they said he had a warrant, let me just remind you that police shouldn't shoot guilty people either.
Exactly.
Guilty, non-guilty, no. Like, that's not the police's job. We are supposed to have a judicial system in America where you go in front of a jury of your peers and a judge. And police just shouldn't be out there acting like we're back in Game of Thrones times and just, you know, oh, You did something? Here you go. Let me just kill you.
And this happened just a few miles outside of Minneapolis, where Derek Chauvin is currently, at this moment, on trial for the murder of George Floyd. So it's like, I cannot even imagine, like, the turmoil in that town right now. I did see that they had curfews in place and, you know, all of this stuff to stop riots, and people are like, well, maybe the police just should stop killing people and then we'll stop rioting. Maybe let's try that scenario. So.
Yeah, and just absolutely heartbreaking. And how many more of these just senseless police killings are we going to have to report? It sucks. It sucks, man. Clearly, we have a long way to go for our country.
Definitely. And Courtney and I do not like having themes like this. Like, this ties in very well with today's episode that was obviously not intended and not what we want. We don't like to keep having these themes like this.
But let's take a little bit of a break from the depressingness, and I have a little bit happier true crime news.
Oh, good.
A little bit happier. In the Kristen Smart case, there has been an arrest, actually 2 arrests. So Paul Flores and his father, Ruben Flores, have both been arrested. They have been long time suspects. Everyone really just believed that Paul especially was responsible. And so now it looks like they do have enough evidence to make an arrest. And I believe that case happened in 1996. So late 90s. Should have looked that up before I just started talking. But hey, that's the Courtney way. But
in that general decade. So, you know, it's been 30 years pretty much.
Yeah, so it's been a really long time. And so that closure for her family, her friends, all of that would be just wonderful, and to give her justice. And that is a case I've wanted to cover for a long time. I think it's been at like the top of our like list of things to do, but I just knew something was maybe going to happen soonish, so I've been holding on to it. So we might be able to cover that one semi-soon.
Yes. That will definitely be one that requires a larger amount of research, so we try to start those a little bit ahead of time to make sure we have time to get all of that in, but definitely be on the lookout for that one because it should be coming pretty soon.
Yeah, and hopefully there'll be a little bit more information. Maybe they'll just take a plea deal and we can do it even faster.
That would be nice.
That would be nice. And Courtney's dream world.
Exactly. So today we are talking about Move. So our sources for this were a couple of documentaries, one called 40 Years a Prisoner, one called Let the Fire Burn, also a Vox.com article, a New York Times article, and an NPR article. So Move was a political and religious organization whose principles revolved around anti-government, anti-technology, and anti-corporation. It was founded by John Africa, who was born Vincent Leapart. So he was a West Philadelphia native and a Korean War veteran whose ideology basically combined Black revolutionary ideas with environmental and animal rights, as well as like a back to nature ideology. So he's got a couple of different things going on here. So the organization talked a lot about just living like a very like natural lifestyle, not eating a lot of processed food, wearing very simple clothing, and just respecting all forms of life. And they would go and protest that all animals should be free. They also advocated for prisoners' rights and community housing, but all of their protests did appear peaceful. So the Move organization lived at 309 North 33rd Street in an area referred to as Powelton Village in Philadelphia. They said that they were disciples of John Africa, and so they all took his name and changed their last names to Africa as well. So all of the members did have the last name Africa. So they believed that one of society's biggest problems was technology, and that could be solved by just returning to the state of nature. So they lived without electricity. So members called it their religion and just a complete way of life. So Move was founded in 1972 and still exists today, but it is unknown how many members there currently are. Members did frequently have run-ins with the police, and a lot of times neighbors would get kind of annoyed with them, so the police would routinely arrest Move members on various charges. So on March 28th, 1976, they were picking up some of the members from jail, and they were having a celebration because they'd just come home, and not long after, they were surrounded by cops. So cops were swinging their nightsticks so hard on people that they were breaking in half, like from literally hitting them. I do want to give a trigger warning here. Courtney was kind enough to give me one in the notes that there is a baby death, so we just want to give you guys that one as well if you want to hit that 15-second skip if you need to. So they took one member, Janine, who was holding her baby, and shoved her on the ground so hard that it broke her baby's skull. So blood was coming out of the baby's nose, and the baby immediately died. So the neighbors told a local newspaper, and it was just one of the worst scenes that they had ever seen. And so now the police, in true fashion, tried to deny that the baby ever existed. They're like, no, there was no baby here. That didn't happen. We didn't kill a baby because there is no baby.
No.
Janine had given birth at home, and the baby was a month old. But since she had given birth at home, there was no birth certificate. So they really didn't have any way to prove that the police had killed this baby. So members called councilmen to come and meet, and Move showed them the baby's body, and many saw the proof, but they didn't give up the baby to do an autopsy because their core principles were really about that natural lifestyle, and they didn't believe in technology. I mean, it's not too surprising that they didn't want to give the baby up. So some people may claim that it didn't happen because they weren't willing to give the baby up, but I mean, it really makes sense because that just goes against everything that they believe in.
And, like, the documentaries have a lot of footage of, like, the Move organization. And, like, you can see, like, one time when someone's, like, filming and, like, one of, like, the older members is showing the kids, like, what is that? And they're like, technology. And he's like, what is it? And they're like, death, like the devil, like, it's horrible. Like,
wow.
They're literally training their kids, like, from a young age, like, don't trust technology, don't trust any of that. So, yeah, it just doesn't, it's not surprising that they're like, yeah, I'm not going to give my baby to you who denies it exists. And then you can just get rid of it or cut it open, like anything like that.
Exactly, because I'm sure to them too, like, everyone's all connected, so it's like, why would I give my baby to the same group of people that just killed it and then are now trying to say that it doesn't exist? Because you're just going to get rid of it, and now this baby didn't exist, and I have no proof otherwise. So the police were still denying any involvement in the beatings and the baby's death, but they were also denying brutality at all by the police in the city where there was proof everywhere that police brutality was happening. So nothing was ever done, and then this really started the battle between Move and the police because of this incident. So there would be 193 arrests of Move members for terrorist threats, riots, aggravated assault and battery, disorderly conduct, and failure to disperse. So Move used this as a starting point to show how badly the system needed to be changed and gotten rid of. So the crooked cops and the cop system as a whole just really didn't help, but hurt and even killed life. So they're like, clearly this isn't working for anyone. So Move started using a bullhorn and talking about their beliefs in the streets at their house, and neighbors started to complain at this point because of the constant loud noises. So they built a structure at their house, and they decided there would be no more beatings or brutality without them defending themselves. They said that if cops came in with hands, they'll give hands. If they come in with clubs, they'll bring clubs. And if they start shooting, they will shoot back in self-defense. So they're basically preparing themselves for the police to do this again.
And they were really saying also, like, we're not going to go attack them, but if they come at us with this, like, we're going to return that.
Yep. So police started having this overwhelming presence at Move headquarters, and so they did get a lawyer to kind of have a go-between, and his name was Joel Todd. He was originally court-appointed to them to be on standby for one of the 3 defendants who was charged with inciting a riot. So he, along with many others, agreed that this organization was very cult-like. He said that doesn't mean that they were bad people, but just more so that they kind of based their beliefs on things that didn't really make sense. And so they were really committed to these beliefs and willing to die for them. So he's like, they're essentially a cult, but they're not trying to cause harm to anyone else. They're just very indoctrinated in their beliefs and essentially brainwashing their children to have the same beliefs, but they're not attempting to harm anyone.
Yeah.
So police then decide to blockade the headquarters, and they even said that they would shut off the utilities. So the Pennsylvania Supreme Court upheld this request, which allowed police to basically starve out this group. So nothing could come in or out, no food or water, and they were literally just blocked in their home by police, which kind of seems like a huge violation of human rights. I'm not really sure how that happened.
Yeah. A lot of this sounds like a violation of human rights.
Yeah, it's kind of an ongoing theme in this story.
Just wait, guys.
It gets worse. So people who lived in the neighborhood couldn't get in even if they showed ID, like literally nothing in or out. And they had roughly 400 police officers in the area, the SWAT team, snipers on roofs, and the police were antagonizing Move by throwing things at them. Cool. So about 150 people met together to talk about going against police's barricade. And a lot of people were on one side or the other about it. So Move wanted to have 3 of their members released from prison, but the police didn't want to hear that and said, you need to clean up the house or you have to leave. That's it. And in the first month, Move's water supply did run out, so they didn't have any food or water for their children. So the city did bring in food, but only for nursing mothers and children, not for the adults. Police did eventually get into Move headquarters and thoroughly search it for weapons. They didn't really find any real, illegal weapons there. The weapons they did find were all damaged, and police had been saying Move had underground tunnels, bombs, explosives, but they didn't have any of that once they actually got into the house. So all the pictures of them holding guns, none of those guns actually worked. They were just kind of for show. So the police did release the Move members from jail as they had requested, but they also created a 90-day truce, and Move would disengage the fences and the wires. And on the 91st day after this, a representative of the city said they intended to tear down the Move headquarters. So Frank Rizzo was the mayor of Philadelphia at the time, and he was denying their extensions and refusing their requests. He was described as easily agitated, and many people just knew how to push his buttons, so it just really escalated the situation. And so on TV, Rizzo was basically taunting them so that they would taunt him back.
Yeah, and on August 7th, 1978, they officially said that Move had to leave, or in Rizzo's words, the police will drag them out by the back of their necks. They said, we're not going to put up any barricades, and it's up to them if there's a confrontation. And he said that anyone who resists would be taken by force, whether it was a child or not. So I don't have kind words about Frank Rizzo.
Nope.
In a lot of these footage in the documentary, he's just okay, good. If the police wasn't using extra force, I'd be getting on to them. Very old school, current school, depending on where you live, I guess.
Yeah.
Not great. So Move was really getting the bad end of this because no media outlet was really reporting what they believed in. They were just being reported as this horrible, terrible group, almost like they were terrorists. The media was making it they're out trying to kill cops or trying to hurt people, but they weren't really doing that. They were just kind of having these protests. And obviously this group isn't perfect. They're kind of a cult, but...
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but they were definitely being demonized in the media, way worse than they actually were.
Yeah.
And the media would just report that it doesn't matter who they were. If the city says they should be out of the house, they should just be out, basically.
Because that's totally how it works. We should just absolutely listen to everything authority says without any kind of assessment, for sure.
And I'm sure everything that happens next would totally happen if it was a white cult.
What?
I hope you can hear the sarcasm in our voices.
Yeah.
On August 8th, the road was just covered with citizens and media and the beginnings of barricades, even though they said there would be no barricades. And there was just a huge police presence. And then the police were trying to move the media out of the area, and they claimed it was for their safety, but it was also conveniently moved where the media couldn't see anything.
That is very convenient. I mean, they just really want to keep the media safe because clearly police care so much about keeping people safe.
And Murray Dublin with the Philadelphia Inquirer, he wasn't really ready to leave. And he had been moved where he couldn't see, and so he just decided he was going to start knocking on neighbors' doors to see if any of them would just let him in so he could watch through a window, which is kind of genius.
Right.
So students in a second floor apartment eventually agreed, and he sat with a photographer and they just watched out the window and waited. They did end up getting photos that would be very, very important in the upcoming events. Mm-hmm. And they also talked about how they thought police saw them at some point, and the photographer actually shoved the film in his boot because he was if the police see us, they're going to try and take this footage, so I'm just going to hide it, if that shows you how the Philadelphia police was.
Right.
At this point in time. So police started bringing in tanks, and they had blockaded the house on all sides. And there were over 600 officers who were heavily armed walking near the house. And they did have a bulldozer to knock down the fence, And they finally got access to the house. And one MOVE member recalls them drilling a hole in the floor to the basement, which is where all the members were, and heard one officer say, "Kill anything that moves down there." And there are children down there. A lot of children.
Serve and protect, right, guys?
So police did end up shooting into the floor, and then after they stopped shooting, they started spraying water from hoses into the building. So they're just dumping water into this basement, and they were like, well, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do tear gas. We're going to dump water because there's children. You can drown in water.
Right, and I'm sure children are more likely to drown more quickly than adults because they are much shorter. So unless someone can, hold them up the entire time, you're probably going to get the short end of that.
And speaking of that, Consuela Africa, who is a MOVE member, said she was 5'6", and they pumped so much water into the basement, she had to actually hold her son up above her chest because it was to her chest. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, me as a 5'1" adult would probably drown in that.
Yeah.
Because I'm short. So they dumped a lot of water. So then gunfire did start, and there is... each side will say a different person started it. But at this point, police just opened up their guns and started shooting back. And the commissioner was actually trying to tell them to stop, but they didn't listen to him, which that's bad.
Yeah.
It's not good police work there. And once the police stopped, MOVE started shooting out of the basement, and then police began to pour more water in, and then they started putting tear gas in.
And remember, this is all because they're not leaving their house.
Yeah, that's it.
That's what this is over.
So slowly, MOVE members started to come out and were being arrested as soon as they got out of the building. And so one member, Delbert Africa, came out and was, quote, subdued, as an officer put it. But the video literally shows the officers kicking him in the head and beating him. And then police, after this, went into the house and searched. At this point, the basement had at least 3 feet of water, and they found a few weapons and ammo they removed from the house. And the tear gas was still so strong at this point, the officers searching the house were affected by it and taken to the hospital. That's how bad it was.
So you can only imagine what it was doing to the children in this home that they are tear gassing. The children.
Yeah. So one of the officers who had been taken to the hospital decided to do his best at drawing a recollection of what was there and what was taken out and where the guns were, what the guns looked like. And immediately after, all the officers get out, Rizzo ordered the building to be completely demolished. And that piece of paper was what was eventually going to be used in an upcoming trial as evidence, because that was all they had. All the evidence in the house was completely gone. 9 members were arrested, and 1 police officer, James Ramp, died, and 4 others were hospitalized, as well as 2 firemen. So a lot of people in this community are believing the police used way too much force with this, way too much.
Yeah.
But one news report clip showed the anchor saying that there's some residents who felt the city acted with plenty of restraint and blamed the whole confrontation on MOVE, but most of these people refused to appear on camera in fear of retaliation. Sounds kind of fake, but okay.
Yeah.
And obviously MOVE did at some point shoot at the police, but I think it's a far, 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 far stretch to say police acted with restraint. So...
yeah, definitely. We are in no way saying that MOVE did nothing wrong here.
Yeah.
But the police did a lot wrong here.
And it was very, provoked, I feel, too.
Yeah.
This all could have been avoided, really. So, police then kept a heavy presence at Powelton Village and tried to keep crowds dispersed. They threatened on TV that they were not afraid to use force for anyone around there. And many residents reported how police hit them with nightsticks and kept a constant presence. There was even, children who just lived in the neighborhood who were yeah, police just came at me, with a nightstick, for no reason. And MOVE supporters did wait outside the hospital for news on injured MOVE members, especially Delbert, who had a broken cheekbone and a bloodshot and swollen eye. So police did conduct forensic tests and determined the weapon used to kill Officer Ramp was one of MOVE's weapons. They also found other weapons, 1,600 rounds of ammunition. Some of those fired, some were unfired. gas masks, holsters, and ammunition boxes. However, a lot of critics wonder how police found all of this in a basement that was dark, with no electricity, had just been doused in 250,000 gallons of water, smoke, tear gas, and only an hour and a half before the whole house was destroyed.
I mean, it seems a little convenient.
That you found, like, how was this investigation so thorough? You found all of this. And also, they had a press conference, like, showing the weapon, and it was clean. Like, a very, very clean weapon. Mm-hmm. So how is it so clean if it comes out of this house with tear gas and water and all that? So, of course, in a press conference held by Rizzo, he praised the police, said they did well, and they even said the police would have the right to kill everyone in that basement after they killed Ramp. They claimed that Delbert came out of the house with a clip in one hand and a knife in the other, so he was hit in the head with a steel hat, but there are pictures taken showing his empty hands and his coming out peacefully with his hands up. There's multiple pictures of this, and that he, like, walked up to the police, like, to be arrested, and they just went at him, basically. Mm-hmm. So people of Powhatan Village held a protest saying anti-Rizzo and anti-police slogans, and police just found it completely unthinkable that the officers would be arrested or critiqued during this time. Like, what are you talking about?
We don't do anything wrong, never.
And the black community then staged a huge protest against the Rizzo administration, and the pictures of Delbert, Africa were really the focal point of this protest, because it's like, you got what you wanted, why did you have to do this?
Mm-hmm. And again, same thing that we see up until today, literally happens all the time. So George Perry was the assistant district attorney and saw the beatings on the news and told the district attorney, Ed Rendell, that it was pretty clear that they were going to have to prosecute those 3 officers. So they did decide to have them arrested. So on the day they were supposed to surrender, a protest had broken out with 2,500 to 3,500 people chanting, "I wear blue, take me too." So 2 of the officers testified that at the time they attacked Delbert, that they were scared because he was laying on one of the officers' pistols and they were scared that he was going to get it, and so the kicks were just to, like, turn him over so he wasn't laying on it anymore. Okay.
More on this later.
So the police commissioner testified that Delbert, quote, wasn't a man, he was a savage, and with a savage you don't know what he'll do. Given the circumstances, the force used by police to subdue the prisoner was reasonable. So this is the police commissioner calling this black man a savage.
Yep.
For nothing. So the videos of this also show police literally kicking Delbert in the face and stepping on his face, and before the trial was even finished, the judge halted the trial and issued an order finding them not guilty before the all-white jury could even decide, because he thought it was so outrageous that they were even charged. Do I need to say that again? The judge just stopped the whole thing because he thought it was outrageous.
The judge literally in the middle of a trial was like, "Are you kidding me? No, not guilty." Before arguments are even done.
Yeah. So apparently this can happen where a judge can overrule a jury, but only from guilty to not guilty, not the other way around. But in this case, many say that this was a clear abuse of power and the judge had no business doing this, which 100% agree. Like, what?
And the district attorney, even, like, years later, was like, I have never in my entire career seen or heard of, like, something like this happening. Like, it was ridiculous.
And even if he hadn't stopped the trial and it had gone to the all-white jury in Philadelphia, that's supposed to be a jury of your peers, an all-white jury?
Yeah.
Is that really accurate of Philadelphia? I don't think so.
Nope.
So because of this halt, George Perry was not allowed to bring up a huge part of his case. So one of the officers was only missing his weapon because it became dislodged while he was kicking him. That's why he lost his weapon, because it fell out while he was kicking Delbert.
And there is a picture of it, of a picture of his foot coming back and his gun coming out because he was kicking him. So clearly your whole defense of, I was just trying to get him off the gun, is complete bullshit.
Yeah. So the defense's statement of why they were kicking was also complete bullshit, because they had photo evidence of this. Like, So after all 3 officers said they would handle the arrest the same way given the chance. Like, clearly didn't feel that they had done anything wrong in this ruthless beating. They just stood by what they did. Yep, I would do it all over again. Hindsight, wouldn't change anything, no difference. So for the trial of the MOVE members, they all wanted to be tried together and did not want a jury because they believed that it would be composed of racist white people, which, I mean, probably not wrong considering what the officers' jury was.
True.
They also wanted to represent themselves, but they were appointed backup counsel. So at this point, no one really cared much anymore about this case, so the courts didn't really care, or the media. The coroner's testimony differed from the coroner's official report, and the DA just took out a pencil and just changed it right there in court, in front of the judge, and he allowed it. Oh, whoops, this was wrong, let me just correct it. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, what the hell is happening?
You were not allowed to do that.
No, that's not okay.
You're not allowed to do that.
That's not okay. My headphones are falling out. I guess I worked up. It's not okay. So all 9 MOVE members were found guilty of murder in the 3rd degree. So each was sentenced to 30 to 100 years in jail, which of course is the maximum sentence. They were Chuck, Delbert, Eddie, Janet, Janine, Merle, Michael, Phil, and Debbie Sims Africa. However, many have pointed out that it is a significant possibility that James Ramp was killed in crossfire and not a shot from inside the house. I mean, look at everything that the police have lied about so far. Like, it is a pretty good possibility. It's definitely possible. In the 40 Years a Prisoner documentary, many people admit to now believing that this was probably what actually happened, but there's not really any proof either way, so we don't know for sure who killed him. So by 1984, MOVE moved their headquarters into a townhouse in West Philadelphia. So they now focused on getting their convicted members out of prison. So they started construction on the roof of the townhouse and were building like a bunker. So they were making a lot of noise and chanting into a bullhorn, and the neighbors weren't super happy, so they started complaining to the city about them. And they did file complaints citing harassment, sanitation issues, and child neglect. So on May 3rd, 1984, police officers surrounded the headquarters after a member was seen on the roof in a hooded mask with a shotgun. So the standoff lasted for 4 hours. Police did not go in the house and no arrests were made. At this point, their actions were really creating some hostility between them and other members of the community. And one neighbor testified about how his daughter saw this happening and he just couldn't explain it to her. And he felt like MOVE was being able to do whatever they wanted with no consequences because of what happened before. They're kind of standing back at this point, and it's causing tension with the whole neighborhood.
And especially, if you have a young kid and it's well, he gets to stand up there and do this with no repercussions, and you're trying to say, well, you can't do that, and it's but here in front of your face, it's happening. So it's
yeah,
it is very difficult for the community to kind of come to grasp with it.
Yeah, definitely. So DA Rendell decided to start pursuing charges of disorderly conduct, parole violation, criminal conspiracy, and terroristic threats. So on May 12th, 1985, police began to evacuate the area as they were preparing for a confrontation with MOVE because they had an arrest warrant. So the police made everyone evacuate. The residents were told they didn't know what the extent would be and to not return to their homes for 24 hours. Police were not sure what was going to happen, but they had a feeling that someone might die considering their past history with MOVE. And police reported that they believed it was likely that MOVE members had automatic weapons and were as heavily equipped as they were. So the police commissioner, Gregor Sambor, prepared an announcement for everyone in the house to come outside. So it began saying, "Attention MOVE, this is America," then continued to say, "Come out of the house." And MOVE responded saying no, and they were being harassed, they were not coming out, and they wanted their people released from custody. So in the early morning of May 13th, police pumped tear gas and water into the compound again. And tear gas could be seen along the whole block. And so the hose was pumping 1,000 gallons of water per minute into this house.
That's a lot of water.
Yeah, that's a whole lot of water. So the police did this tactic because it would disorient MOVE and increase the humidity, which makes the tear gas more effective, and the water pressure could also cause the house to collapse. So they're very intentionally doing this. So around 6 a.m. that morning, police told the MOVE members that they had 15 minutes now to exit the house. So this was after earlier coming on and telling them, this is America, you have to abide by the laws of the United States. Now at 6 a.m. they're saying you have 15 minutes to leave. So the tactical plan was to remove the MOVE members from the house safely. So this was to be done by causing a distraction on the roof and then bringing the teams in. So the police presence wasn't as heavy and was mostly being handled by the stakeout team, but gunshots started soon after. So news teams were being forced to leave the area, and Commissioner Sambor maintains that MOVE shot first, of course. So gunfire continued, and MOVE did end up having 4 guns in their house. However, none of them were capable of automatic fire, so the police were wrong in that judgment. And Sambor insisted that MOVE shot first. He said he doesn't know how to explain it, but there was absolutely no way police shot first, and that automatic fire was coming from somewhere in the MOVE house. So.
Yeah, okay. It's just a ghost shooting an automatic weapon, I guess, since they have no weapons at all capable of making that sound.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds
weapons.
Right.
And we are not disputing that who did or did not shoot first. I don't know. I wasn't there. We're not
I have no idea.
Making a claim one way or the other. But we do know that they did not have any weapons that were capable of automatic fire. So police did not hear that. And also the commissioner saying that there is no way that MOVE shot first. Does anyone really know in that situation where it's so hectic and so chaotic? Can you really make that claim? I don't think so. So now that MOVE has started shooting, they say, police changed their tactics. So they said that MOVE members now became felons at this point, so the amount of force used could be upped. So during this raid, there were 3 women, 4 men, and 6 children in the house. And police actually shot at the house so much that they ran out of bullets and had to have more brought in. So the gunfire was moving out, so police had to push back into their barricades. They used 10,000 rounds of ammunition on this day, May 13th. By 4 p.m., the water hose had been turned off. Mayor Good held a press conference saying they intended to evacuate the house by any means necessary. So Wilson Good had been elected in 1984 and was the first black mayor of Philadelphia.
So at about 5 p.m., a member of the police bomb squad suggested using the helicopter to drop an explosive on MOVE's roof. So Mayor Good did approve using this explosive, and police loaded a satchel with 4 pounds of Tovex and C4 plastic explosive on a 45-second fuse. Children are still in the house at this point when they knowingly drop a bomb on it. Just reminding you of that.
Yes.
So Commissioner Sambor said he got the report that there was no smoke or fire after the bomb went off. Video contradicts this and shows smoke as soon as 2 minutes after the bomb and fire 15 minutes after the bomb.
That photographic evidence and video evidence is a bitch, isn't it?
Yep. So while this fire starts, even though they had these huge water hoses that can pump 1,000 gallons a minute, they don't turn them on. They're not moving at all. And Commissioner Sambor said he just wanted to get the entire bunker demolished, and so he's just letting it burn. He said he wanted them to have tactical superiority without putting lives at risks. And he told everyone to just let that bunker burn. So now, 25 minutes after the bomb is dropped, there is massive flames, a lot of smoke. There is no denying that a fire is on this roof.
Yes.
And the documentary actually showed an interview with a woman named Janice Walker, who lived 2 doors down, who was just crying at this scene because she's like, I know the things in my house are destroyed at this point. She said that she lived there for 20 years and it just wasn't fair. And another resident of the neighborhood said they left with only a few items because they thought they were just going to be evacuated for the night. So, I mean, that's the thing too. Like I was telling Kevin, like, would you even think to bring your pets sometimes? Like the cats, like it's really hard for us to move our cats. And it's like, oh, we're just making sure nothing happens. It'll be fine. Like you just leave. But now you're seeing a house 2 doors down just completely engulfed in flames. Like that is horrible.
Yeah, like when the police told you to evacuate your house for the situation, I'm sure you did not imagine that this fire was about to break out.
You didn't think that the Philadelphia Police Department was going to drop a bomb in the middle of a very populated area, because these are like all like row houses where they're like connected, all super close.
Exactly. Like if you do something to one house, it's like basically an apartment. Like you can't isolate one house for this kind of damage.
Yeah, it's just like their walls are all connected. It's a huge, just basically like one big block of a house.
Yeah.
So Mayor Good was watching on the TV from his office, and he said he saw all the smoke, and after about 5 minutes, he gave the order to put the fire out at 6 p.m. Commissioner Sambor says he told the fire commissioner of this order, but the fire commissioner maintains he was never told of this order. And you can kind of see them in the video of this, like, testimony that they're doing, and the fire commissioner is getting really pissed that Sambor is throwing him under the bus, because he's like, Sambor's like, I know, I told him, he didn't listen to me. And the fire commissioner is like, I was never told of this. Like,
and
I'm listening to you.
You know, not to, obviously we hate on police a lot for necessary and justifiable reasons, but I feel like in this situation, it's pretty clear who's telling the truth, because why would the fire commissioner want this fire to keep going? Like, that doesn't make any sense, versus the police commissioner who literally moments before is saying, no, let the whole thing burn down. I kind of know who might be telling the truth here.
Yeah, and at this point, the upper rooms of the house are now completely engulfed and destroyed. The fire is also spreading to the neighbors' houses, and it's very visual at this point. On audio, you can hear police joking. I bet they won't call the police commissioner a motherfucker anymore. And why don't you just blow them out of there? So these are what other officers watching this scene, knowing children are in this house. Like, not that anyone deserves to die, but you know young children are in this house. Like,
Yep. Clearly innocent people. Like, they're children. They're all innocent.
So as night fell, attention turned to events in the alley behind the move house. So police took machine guns in the alley, and they claimed they went back there to prevent move members from escaping. I thought you were here to arrest them. Don't you want them out of the house?
Right.
One of the officers who was found not guilty in the Delbert Africa case for excessive force was a part of this as well. Conflict of interest much?
Maybe.
So police testified that a woman was shouting, "Don't shoot," and they were trying to get the women and children out of the house. And one of the male members came out with a child. Police said that he came out with a rifle and fired quick shots. Most things up to this point were caught on camera by media, but none of what occurred in the alley could be seen. So again, we're just going off of what basically this officer says, and as well as Birdie Africa. Originally it was Michael Ward, and he was in the house, and he said the man did not have a rifle when he left the house. He said he used a monkey wrench to get the door open. And the police officer said, well, I know what a rifle looks like, and that's what I saw. So shots were fired quickly after this, and the officer said it was not automatic fire and it was slow. And Birdie said, though, that he heard quick, fast shots. So probably more likely the police shooting than the man. Police also testified they did not fire any weapons after the bomb was dropped, but Birdie said the officers started shooting. So now the members are going back into the house, and the police claim it was probably to regroup. And they were just telling them to just come out with their hands up, but many pushed back on this, saying, like, if this is true, like, if they're just saying, like, oh, well, just come out with your hands up, no problem, why would you run back into a burning house? It doesn't seem likely.
Like, you're running from something. Yeah.
This clearly just doesn't really add up. So Ramona Africa and Birdie Africa were able to exit the house. Birdie actually fell while he was leaving and hit his head, and he fainted. An officer went to go get him, and as soon as he reached Birdie, Birdie just begged, please don't shoot me. And there was also, like, a thing with this as well, where the officer went to go get him, and another officer told him not to, because what if he tries to hurt you? I mean, this kid is like 6, 7, elementary school kid. And then eventually the officer was like, I don't care, I'm getting this child. Like, I don't really care what you say anymore.
Like, finally, something right here.
So Birdie made it out with severe burns, but his mother, Rhonda, was killed in the fire. Ramona also escaped the house, and she was very badly burned. She was arrested, and she was sentenced to 7 years in prison on charges of rioting and conspiracy charges for the arrest warrants before the bomb. Ramona claims that MOVE members had tried to escape from the fire to surrender, but were forced back inside when police opened fire on them, and police, of course, refute this allegation. So finally, they're going to try to start putting this fire out. But at this point, it's just out of control. Even with their hoses, it's just completely out of control. It spread and it destroyed 3 rows of houses, and that's 61 homes in total that were destroyed. And I mean burnt to the ground, destroyed. Mm-hmm. More than 250 citizens were left homeless. The city of Philadelphia did pay to rebuild the neighborhood, but the new houses were later condemned in 2000 due to shoddy construction. So, like 15 years later, think of how bad of construction that has to be.
Yeah.
For 15 years later, it be condemned. These houses today are mostly vacant, and it is one of the worst tragedies in Philadelphia's history, but like nationally, it's just basically forgotten. I had never heard of this until I heard Affirmative Murder do it, and I was like, how is this not talked about in every history book?
Right?
Like,
exactly.
They not only killed these people over an arrest warrant, not even found guilty yet, an arrest warrant, mm-hmm. but they destroyed like a whole neighborhood, and they ruined just innocent people's lives, like who lost everything, and then they built them new homes that were literally unsafe to live in. And like the girl earlier who mentioned, like, I've lived here for 20 years. Like, this is my whole life. And mm-hmm. now you have to start over from zero. And this isn't like some rich neighborhood where they could, easily recover. Like, these are people who are like, my house is destroyed. Like, I don't have anything to help me rebuild.
Exactly. And like Courtney said, the police literally set fire to an entire neighborhood over an arrest warrant, but also really just a personal vendetta. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to.
Yeah. So the people who died in the fire were Katricia Dotson, who's also known as Tree Africa, Zanetta Dotson, who's also known as Netta Africa, Phil Phillips, who's also known as Phil Africa, Delita Orr, who's also known as Melissa Africa, and Tommaso Lavino, who was also known as Tommaso Africa. And these were all children. All those names I just said were children.
Yes.
The adults who died in the fire were Raymond Foster Africa, Conrad Hampton Africa, Frank James Africa, Rhonda Harris Ward Africa, Teresa Brooks Africa, and Vincent Leapart, who was John Africa, the founder of MOVE. And those were all the adult MOVE members. Mm-hmm. In testimony, a former MOVE member said how MOVE were happy people, they were loving people, and they were human beings. And police clearly just did not view these people as human beings, and that's just shown countless times throughout videos. Like, they just viewed these people, I mean, as the police commissioner said himself, like savages, mm-hmm.
like lesser human beings, for sure.
The commission who looked into this issued a final report saying that city officials and police were negligent in their actions. However, no criminal charges were ever filed. In 1996, a jury ordered the city to pay Ramona Africa $500,000 because the siege on the MOVE compound violated her constitutional rights. So, the 13-year-old who escaped with Ramona, Birdie, was taken in by his father and changed his name to Michael Moses Ward. He never saw or spoke to Ramona again. Birdie did die suddenly in 2013 at the age of 41. So current MOVE members were still advocating for the release of the 9 imprisoned members from the 1978 incident where the police officer died. I know that feels like forever ago after what happened.
Right.
Debbie Sims was not released until June 2018. She was the first one who was released. And then after that, Michael Africa Sr. was released in October 2018. So their story is told a lot by their son, Michael Africa Jr. in the documentary 40 Years a Prisoner. That is a really, really great documentary. I do recommend it. It doesn't really talk much about the bombing itself because they said, like, people talk about the bombing and don't talk about, like, what happened before it. So that was really, really interesting, really good. It's on HBO Max. I recommend it. Merle and Phil Africa died in prison. In May 2019, Janine and Janet Africa were released from prison. On June 21st, 2019, Eddie Africa was released from prison. And Delbert Africa was granted parole on December 20th, 2019, and released on January 18th, 2020. Chuck was the last MOVE member to be released, and that was on January 7th, 2020. Delbert Africa did later die at his home on June 16th, 2020 from cancer. So he did spend all this time in prison and 6 months later died, which is just tragic.
Mm-hmm.
So in November 2020, the city officially apologized for the first time publicly. So only took, 40 years?
Right.
They also declared that the day of the bombing, May 13th, be an annual day of remembrance. So the current mayor, Jim Kenney, said it is important to learn from the past and do better by the citizens going forward. He also acknowledged the missteps in the city's attempts to rebuild and said a recent public-private partnership had succeeded in reconstructing homes in the affected area, which is a nice gesture, but this is also 35 years later, so who are you really helping? Because
exactly,
most of those people living there probably have moved away, are dead. But this is just the horrific, tragic story of the MOVE organization and their battle with the police that ended in way too many people dying, basically.
Yeah, again, such a tragic event and such a not well-known event for something so major. I mean, how do we not all know this story? How is this story not in all of our textbooks or talked about all the time or anything? That's just crazy.
A bomb was dropped in the city of Philadelphia. In the city, in the middle, maybe not in the middle, but right there in the city. How is this not talked about? And I'm sure it's because the police fucked up and America doesn't want to talk about the history where they fucked up. They want to whitewash it and be like, oh yeah, people immigrated here from Africa when America was first founded. No, shut the fuck up. Tell the truth.
That's not how this works. That's not how this happened.
It's not how this works.
And of course there are still many people today that still blindly back up the police, but maybe we're getting a little bit further away from that. I feel like a large population is starting to recognize that the police aren't always right and need to be held accountable for their actions. So whether or not that's going to happen anytime soon, whether or not there will be actual legal changes or policy changes or anything, but it sounds like maybe some of the population is starting to wake up at least.
Yeah, and I think this also shows police brutality and excessive force used by the police is not new.
Yeah.
We just have video cameras now. We have cell phones. We have social media. This has been happening for years, and police have just been getting away with it for years. And police need to be held to a higher standard. In my job, if I make a mistake, I have to write a whole form out about what I did and all this stuff. And that's more than what police have to do after they kill someone in the street, basically.
Yeah.
So it's just, we need a higher standard for cops. We need better resources for things that cops are not trained to handle. Just things like that. We need better resources, all of that. I'm hoping we're in maybe a shift forward. There is a lot of protests, a lot of outcry, but I don't know. Something has to change. Hopefully it'll happen soon.
Yeah, agreed. Well, this was very heavy and sad. So, yeah. Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
Okay, my perk of the week is going to be streaming services. Because I know it's not a very, huge event or anything like that, but can we just talk about how important streaming services are to all of our lives?
Yes. Agreed.
I was just thinking about that. One, HBO Max is, since they released, stepped up their game. They have a lot of good stuff on there. They're making it worth their money. And then plus just I feel like I can find any show I want on some streaming device. And it's just so nice to be able to just watch things easily and not the old school days when I'd have to VCR record the latest episode of Secret Life of American Teenager because I might miss it, And do I want to record over, the latest episode of whatever other show? That's just my perk of the week because, we can't be taking these streaming services for granted because they're amazing.
I remember my mom loved Days of Our Lives, and of course a new episode came out every day, and she's like, I'm a working mom, I don't have time to watch this every single day. So she would record it every day. And then it's like, we have like 30 VHS tapes. Like, Mom, are you going to watch the last 4 years of Days of Our Lives sometime? Like,
yeah, and like if you accidentally like don't record one and then it's like impossible to find it, now like everything's on like next day at Hulu and you can just watch it real quick. Like it's crazy, but it's amazing. So that is, I think, a luxury that we take for granted a lot because it's kind of just the standard now. So
I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago that Andrew and I were rewatching Reba on Hulu, and there's so many episodes that I'm like, I feel like I've only seen half this episode, because you just watch it when it like is on. You're scrolling through at like 7:15 and it's like, okay, well, I'll start in the middle of this episode. There's so many things that like you haven't really seen the whole thing from start to finish, and it's like, oh, that's how that episode started.
That's a lot funnier when I know what happened before this.
Right. And when I know the setup for the joke, it's a lot better.
But yeah, so that is my perk of the week. Jaclyn, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is that Andrew and I got our maternity photos done this weekend, and I was afraid that it was going to storm that day, but the weather ended up being like absolutely perfect. We went to this little park downtown. We got one sneak peek picture today that the photographer posted, so that's super exciting, and then we'll have the rest of them soon. But I'm really excited about the way that they're turning out. If you guys are local-ish, I know she does travel, so I mean, you don't have to be too local, but
ish. I don't know if she'll travel to California for a maternity shoot, but
I don't know. Her website says she'll travel worldwide. I don't know what those fees are, but
watch out for those fees.
Right. But if you guys are local-ish, she is in Richmond, Virginia. Her business is Shot with a Bow Photography, so definitely check her out. She's pretty amazing. So that's my perk of the week.
That is an exciting perk of the week. And guys, from when this comes out, baby gonna be here soon. Baby gonna be here soon.
That is true.
So
that is true. I feel like pretty soon these perk of the weeks are gonna be weird, because by the time it comes out, like, this human child will be here.
I know.
So.
Oh, my perk of the week is I felt her kick, and now she's like, wah, wah, wah.
Don't worry. We'll definitely we'll give you guys an Instagram update, so you don't have to wait 4 weeks to hear it in an episode. Oh, my perk of the week is I have my baby this week, and
she's 3 months old
6
now.
6 weeks later. Right.
No, guys, we have a plan. Do not worry. But if you want to give us your favorite streaming service, your favorite photographer, your guess on when Jaclyn's baby is going to be born, you can do so on Twitter at CAF Crimes Pod, CAFF Crimes Pod, on Instagram at Caffeinated Crimes Pod, at Facebook at Caffeinated Crimes Podcast, because more professional, because it's Facebook. You can send us an email at caffeinatedcrimespod@gmail.com, or if you want to help fund Jaclyn's baby, because Lord knows babies are expensive, and you want some extra bonus content, some extra goodies, hang out with us, all that, you can go to patreon.com/caffeinatedcrimes. Give us just a little donation once a month if you have the means, and we'll try and make it worth every penny.
And we do have some of our monthly bonus episodes already recorded. We are already like 2 months ahead in the research for some upcoming episodes, so we're trying to make sure that you guys don't miss any content when I'm busy having a baby. So don't worry about Patreon. They're still going to be there. They're still coming. We're getting those ahead for you guys. Also still running our Apple review contest. So if you guys have not already, grab someone's iPhone, yours, your partner, child, parent, a stranger on the street, stay 6 feet away, just have them toss it to you, whatever. Get their iPhone, leave us a review, leave us 5 stars, tell us all the good things, let us know you did so, and you will be entered into a drawing to win a sticker and a pin if we ever reach 50 of those. And
a gift card.
And a $10 gift card to a coffee shop of your choice, because I got pregnancy brain, I don't know anything these days. So go do all those things.
Yeah, and I would find it hilarious if you guys would just like yell at people on the street, go give Caffeinated Crimes a review, and follow them on Instagram.
Should get some yard signs.
That'd be pretty. Yeah, that'll be our next Patreon gift, is a yard sign that you can put up. Caffeinated Crimes 2024.
I'm on board with this. Let's do it.
But in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.